a really exciting debate because we actually have 3 out of our 5 county commission districts up for election. So thank you for taking your time to listen and to participate. This is an extremely important election for the county. So it's great that everybody has taken the time to be informed on the issues, and we appreciate the candidates showing up also. So as I mentioned, in this election we have 3 districts, Districts 1, 3, and 5, up for re-election in Osceola County. In District 1, the 2 candidates are Jed Sewell and Peggy Chowdhury. Ms. Chowdhury could not be here this morning, but we have Mr. Sewell with us. District 3, we have Ivan Rivera and Brandon Arrington. Again, Mr. Rivera could not make it, and we have Mr. Arrington here at the dais. Mr. Rivera could not make it. District 5, we have Fred Hawkins and Jeff Rivera. And Mr. Hawkins, Commissioner Hawkins, is joining us here today. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to be the moderator. We have 2 representatives from the news community here who will be asking questions. We're going to start off with opening and closing statements. I have a brief statement from Peggy Chowdhury, who is the candidate for County Commission Seat 1, who could not make it here today. And I'm going to read that before we get started, and then we'll start with the questions. So from Ms. Chowdhury, thank you all for your attention. I'm sorry I could not attend this morning's debate. Unfortunately, due to an unforeseen health issue, I am unable to participate. I was truly looking forward to discussing the issues with the media panel and with my friend, Mr. Jed Sewell. I have a passion for public service and was eager to share my plans to boost economic development, protect our environment, and enhance public safety. I wish all the candidates participating the best and will return to the campaign trail shortly. Now what I'd like to do is give each of the candidates a moment to give an opening statement, to introduce themselves, let you know the district that they're running from or running for, and take a few moments for an opening statement. So we will start with Mr. Sewell, please.
Thank everybody for showing up. Thank you for showing up today. I've been married to my wife Jody for 20 plus years now. I have 1 daughter named Morgan. She turned 14 years old, a freshman in high school. I can tell you my house is getting interesting this year. But my family has lived here for several generations. My great-grandfather used to haul lumber to Tampa from Kissimmee with oxen. My grandfather owned a dairy farm. My father, he owns this industrial park and a tourist attraction, and I help him manage both those properties. And then I also work for a private engineering firm. But that's not what's important in the race for Osceola County Commission District 1. What is important is how can Osceola County's government best give its citizens the opportunity to succeed. And I say that to say this. I can tell you about Deanna. She went up to UCF and received a marketing degree. She come back to Osceola County. There were no jobs for her. There's no marketing firms in Osceola County. So being industrious, she started her own business. She told me it took 2 weeks and $200 to do so. That is unacceptable. I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, or Independent. I can tell you about Brianna. She went up to Tennessee and received a degree. She wanted to come back and live here in Osceola County near her parents. There were no jobs for her within her area of study. She's working over there in Tampa in Hillsborough County. I can tell you about my nephew Alex. He's an electrical engineer. He went to UCF as well. He wanted a job near his grandparents here in Osceola County. He wanted a job near his grandparents in Osceola County. There was no jobs for him either. He's working over in Brevard County. So what I'm telling you is we're losing we're educating our kids, and they're going off and getting degrees at higher levels of study, but when they want to come back, not all of them want to come back, but the ones that do, we don't have jobs for them to return. And I think that's unacceptable as well. We have to attract an industry with high-paying jobs that need people with college tuitions or college educations.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Mr. Sewell. Now we will hear from Commissioner Arrington, who's running for County Commission Seat 3.
Thank you, Julie. And I want to thank the Chamber and their sponsors for putting this event on. As a candidate, it's one of the rare opportunities where we have to actually express our views and talk about what we believe the county should be in. I want to first thank you all for supporting me for these past 8 years. We've been able to accomplish a lot of amazing things here in Osceola County, whether it's the expansion of an expressway authority, whether it's the creation of the farm, looking to bring high-tech, high-paying jobs to our community, whether it's a new Valencia campus, a permanent fire station. We've been able to do a lot during these hard times in our community, all while being able to increase our credit rating. Well, we've done some amazing things, and with your help and support, we can continue to do so. Thank you so much.
All right, great. And for Commissioner Hawkins, District 5.
Well, thank you. It's been an honor to serve the last 8 years with Brandon and the other members of the Board of County Commissioners. I'd like to also thank the Chamber for putting this event on. I do want to speak a little bit about our opponents not showing up. I believe not only District 5, but this county requests accountability and accessibility. And to not come and be accountable and stand on a platform, I think speaks a lot to where you're at in your campaign. I felt the easiest thing to do when I first ran was to debate an incumbent. And to not do that, I think, says a lot. That's all I'm going to say about that. I just want to say a few years ago at the State of the County address, when I was chairman, I said Osceola County is on the brink of greatness. And I think we're seeing that now. We've diversified the economy. We've led through hard times when the economy did crash, continue to diversify the economy, invest in public safety, have a tremendous partnership with our school system, school board, which I think we have the greatest school board in place right now that I've ever seen. We've invested in public safety, and we want to continue to do those things with the leadership, and I'm grateful for people I've served with that we've moved forward in that direction. Thank you.
Great, thank you, gentlemen. Real briefly, next we're going to move to the question and answer part of the debate. And I want to let everybody know and thank Access Osceola. I neglected to do that originally. This is recorded and it will be put online so the citizens can have access to it. It can be distributed and folks can see the candidate's position. So thank you very much to Access Osceola for that. We're going to have some questions from Mr. McBride and Mr. Hanson. We're talking today in this debate about some broader policy questions, not necessarily anything that's going to be coming before the board. So we'll have policy questions on the future of the county and get the county's thoughts on where we're going and what needs to be done. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to start with Mr. Hanson, and he will ask one question, and each of the candidates will have right at about a minute to give their response to that question, and then we'll move on to Mr. McBride's question. So, Mr. Hanson?
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
If you are elected, what will be your first task or what project will you work on once you are elected?
My first 90 days in office, I want to create two new citizen boards. One's going to be called Less Taxes Now, and what their job would be to do is go through each of the county's departments and audit each budget and give recommendations to the county commissioners on how they can save money within that particular department. I think it's important that we ask the community to help us look after the money that the taxes we receive. I also got one called Less Regulations Now, and it's going to be a hard thing to do, but we're going to go through the county's regulations. If you were to print out the regulations for Osceola County just by itself, it'd be 3 feet tall. We need to find out what regulations that are outdated, which ones we don't need, which ones are restricting the free market from doing what it does best, and that's create wealth for all the citizens of Osceola County.
All right, thank you very much. Commissioner Arrington.
Thank you. Once reelected, the two priorities I'm going to continue to focus on are transportation, infrastructure, and education, and that's where we put a priority over the last 4 to 6 years in our community. And the two major components that still need continued work are the farm. We've invested over $140 million in a 100,000 square foot clean lab research facility to change the economic outlook of our community. But that's going to continue to take effort from us. We're going to continue to have to work with our state legislative body to increase funding for UCF, so we have ongoing operations funding and also more funding for equipment for that facility. And then the other big thing is continuing to work with CFX on building the next leg of Point Sienna Parkway, connecting it to I-4 and also east to the Turnpike. Thank you.
Commissioner Hawkins, please.
Thank you, and I think that's a great question because we do face our challenges, and one of mine would be growth. Working with the developers as we did in the sector plan, we had the landowners there, we had the stakeholders there, and the environmental groups and the county to make sure that the new development was also protecting the environmental sensitive areas, planning where the growth would go, but also not being a burden to the taxpayers and what the services the county would have to provide. So that would definitely be a priority. And also to continue the work we've done on, while we can't stop growth, and growth has its blessings, it also has its burdens. But also making sure, as Brandon and I worked on the tree ordinance, to make sure that we're not cutting in and cutting down all these old oak hammocks and everything and making them incorporated in the development. Getting new streets, the way the streets are designed with on-street parking. As we know, it's not traditional that 2 cars are in each household, and there's sometimes more than that, but allowing for the walking and bike paths and sidewalks. So working that end of the development to make sure that the development enhances the community and doesn't negatively impact the surrounding area that's already there.
All right, great. Now for our second question, we're going to go to Mr. McBride. In the interest of fairness, I'm going to be rotating who gets the first response, so we aren't always picking on Mr. Sewell here. So for this one, Mr. McBride, if you don't mind starting with the question, and then we'll start at the middle with Commissioner Arrington with the answer.
Good morning.
Morning.
What can you do to address the county's road improvement needs, from funding them to making them a priority for the FDOT?
We've actually, infrastructure has been a priority of this commission for the past 8 years since Fred and I were actually elected. In that time, we've spent over $600 million in the infrastructure of Osceola County, and that's everything from new roads, road improvements, expressways, additions to link system, the investment in Sunrail. But one of the key components that we've done for long-term funding for our infrastructure, because one of the things that people have to understand, we've underfunded maintenance in Osceola County on our infrastructure at a dismal level for years and years and years. And so we've created 2 different mechanisms. One was DAT, which is dedicated ad valorem tax. Thank you, Fred. Which basically sets aside funding for long-term usage for infrastructure funding. We put a cap on where we were on our tax base, and every percentage above that goes into this pot. So we'll have money for maintenance. And then the other tough decision we made was increasing a 5-cent gas tax, also to pay for infrastructure and also our mass transit uses. It wasn't a fun choice to do, but if we're going to be serious about taking care of the long-term interests of Osceola County, we have to make those decisions. Thank you.
All right, great, thank you. Commissioner Hawkins, we'll take that one second.
I'll see if I can build on what Brandon said, because working together for 8 years, we kind of had the same answers. I think you can go about one with CFX as the representative for Osceola County on CFX and making sure that partnership continues to move forward. We just voted that both at the county level and on the CFX board, so we can get that Southport connector going from 417, eventually tie into the new Poinciana Parkway and eventually out to 429. That will be tremendous help for our infrastructure and moving people around. Our lakes are some of the most beautiful assets we have, but they also do hinder our transportation system, trying to get from St. Cloud to Polk County, and this would definitely help out, or vice versa. But also, I think you look at our tax base. We want to make sure that we set a goal to, if you want to permit in Osceola County and Orange County can give it to you in 3 days, we want to do it in 1. I think we've made great strides to do that. Less government regulations, low taxes brings in the commercial and industry, which helps your tax base, and then take that money in new investment. We've seen our rise in property values. Make sure that money's being invested properly for maintenance and for the road construction.
The answer that the commissioners gave, that money's already spoken for. The 5-cent gas tax, the DAC, your mobility fees, that money's already accounted for the next year's budget. When I was talking about a board to audit each department, it's a $1.2 billion plus or minus budget down there a year. So if you can save $2 million here in this department, $3 million here, it's not like you're going to save $100 million in one department. But if you can put together 10 or 20 or $30 million that you save, you could reprioritize that money because it's money you didn't know you had. And then you could put that money towards fixing our infrastructure, which needs to be done, because I can tell you personally, there's several lights in Osceola County. I have to wait 5 times for it to change before I go through the light. I can't be the only one in this room that's happened to. So that's what I'm talking about. We need to save money in the budget and then reprioritize the money, and particularly for infrastructure, so people, goods, and services can move around efficiently and effectively.
Thank you. Next question from Mr. Hanson, and we will start with Commissioner Hawkins, please.
Okay. This is going to be a two-question thing. If you answer no, then that will be your first question. What are your thoughts of the decision of creating this, making the CBB a semi-private or private institution experience Kissimmee? Do you agree with that decision?
You're talking to the guy that brought that to the board and asked for it to be done. So yes, I'm very proud of that decision. I think it is moving in the right direction. I think the tourist community has welcomed it. It's vibrant. DT is the rock star leading this, and that we were able to get him by privatizing it. I know it was controversial at first, but I think they are on the right direction. You know, with tourism and ag, that's how we've been. And while we're talking about the farm and things up there today, we will never forget our support for our two traditional communities of agriculture and tourism. And I think this is a better way to
second
go.
question, which will be, what will be your next step as far as tourism-related improvements?
Tourism
And only
related.
to the extent of
Mhm.
the general policy, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we need to be hands-off and let the people that work in the actual tourism do their job. That was my whole, bringing that forward, is I felt like you had really 5 people that had never worked in tourism before making decisions for Experience Kissimmee. And by letting them make the decisions and being accountable to the board, showing what they're doing, I think they've made tremendous strides, and I fully support them moving forward in the direction they're going.
I'm for it as well, and we'll get the opportunity to see the results, I think, in 3 years, Fred. It comes back before the board to keep it going or to bring it back. It's in 3 years. It's in a couple years, the opportunity to bring it back and do it like it was before, or to keep it private, which I think they're doing a great job. I'm like Fred in that aspect. I agree with him. Those people are in the tourism industry. They got Disney World and SeaWorld and Universal on the board. They know far more about tourism than I ever will. Just because you get elected doesn't make you an instant genius. You know, sometimes you got to let the people that know what's going on handle that situation. I did see a recent study where Latin America was one of the fastest growing areas that are coming to Osceola County to stay in hotels and houses. And I think we still got to spend money over there in Europe and Great Britain. They call it the cash cow for Osceola County. That's where a lot of the people stay when they do come over here. But I think they're doing a great job. And like I said, in a couple of years, we'll have the opportunity to leave it like it is right now or to change it.
I was the final deciding vote on the opportunity to go privatize. And I'll be honest, I had a lot of skepticism at first, but I think they've been able to right the ship. I think, but the biggest thing is getting the right leader, and that's the same for any institution. I think you can look at Osceola County and you can see stability in the leadership, and I think that the same thing is going to be very true of EK for many years to come. I think the next vision from a county commission standpoint of where tourism goes and where our investment and interest are, you still have to understand we still control 3 pennies of the tourist development tax. And those 3 pennies can be used for sports facilities, other entertainment purposes. And we've had a lot of different projects come before us. But I think the thing that we're probably proudest of as a board is that we haven't been reactionary to those proposals. We have seen a myriad of opportunities come before us to spend hundreds of millions of dollars. And each idea is greater than the next. But we've had that wherewithal and thought process to not make knee-jerk reactions. Because if we wouldn't have the farm, and instead we'd have 15 days of spring training.
All right, great. So now we've closed that question out. Now it's back to Mr. McBride. Thank you. And this time we are going to start with Mr. Sewell.
Being that Osceola was recently named one of the fastest growing counties by Forbes magazine, in your view, what is the most prudent manner to protecting our environment while managing growth?
I think as a county commissioner, you have to ask at least 3 questions before you approve a large housing project or development. First of all, you have to ask, are the roads adequate enough for the existing people and for the new people to move around efficiently and effectively? And if not, how are we going to fix the problem? How long is it going to take to fix the problem? And how much money is it going to cost? And the second question, I'm not trying to be on the school board here, but I think the school board needs a voice on the planning commission at least, and we probably ought to ask their opinion during the meeting before we vote on it, is if we approve, it's a 400 house development, if there's 2 kids per house, that's 800 kids in the school system. Is that a detriment to the existing kids in our school system? Or not? Is the school system keeping up, or are they 6 years behind? So we need to ask those questions. And the last is, we got to find out, Osceola County is sitting on a big reservoir of water, okay? But we got to find out what's the tipping point. How many people can we have live here before we go beyond the point that we're taking more water than can be put back into the aquifer? Okay, I don't know what the answer to that is, and I'm sure Toho Water Authority somebody's got that figured out. But them are some questions we need to ask. But while I'm saying that, is I also believe in property rights. I think property rights are like a bundle of twigs with a rope wrapped around them. And local and state government have been taking those twigs out of property owners' rights for years now. And we need to stop doing that. And that includes the right to develop to the highest and best use. I just think we can have the people develop, but it may not be the correct timing that they want. We may have to solve some problems before we allow these big developments to happen.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Next with Commissioner.
This is a great question, and one of the things we've been working on as your county commission for the last couple of years, and something that I've been championing myself, is a sustainability policy for Osceola County. We have been the bedroom community of Central Florida for far too long. Every morning, 75% of our population wakes up and leaves our community. That puts an unbelievable burden on our infrastructure at those peak level service hours. And so one of the things that I've championed that through the sustainability policy is starting to look at creating that balanced tax base. One of the issues we have by being such a bedroom community is our tax base. We have to nickel and dime you, and when I say that, it's a fire fee, it's a gas tax, and that's because we don't have adequate tax base to provide the services that you, the citizens, need. So if we can create a sustainability plan where we begin to focus on industry, commercial, and residential, all as a component of one that looks at where the jobs balance is to the housing balance, so we can begin to cut down our commute, shorten those commutes, and keep more of our population in Osceola County on a daily basis. Thank you.
It's going to be a little hard to add to that. It's got it pretty well covered. I go back to my example of the Northeast District and what we put in place there as a commission. I believe it was Brandon that brought up he wanted so many jobs per house. I think it's 1.6 jobs for every house that's going to be built in that area. But also what we did, it wasn't a rush to get this done. It actually took about a year or a little over a year where we worked with the stakeholders. We worked with the environmental groups, the landowners of the county, all came together to make sure that we were protecting the areas that we had to, excuse me, but also setting the areas that would be developed and areas that could continue to be in conservation and be still agriculture in those areas. So putting that all together and working with our school board, and Jed, we do have a representative on the planning commission from, I believe it's my brother-in-law, Tim Weishauer, sits on the planning commission. Having their input also and having the developers work with us, knowing that any burden placed on the schools, that we have to make sure that they come to the table with that in mind also. So it's not one answer for the whole problem that we have. It has to be everybody coming to the table to discuss it and make sure we're making the best decisions.
Good point.
All right, great. Now we're on to Mr. Hanson, and I believe Commissioner Arrington, Mr. Arrington, it's your turn to start, right?
Thank you.
So.
Yeah, about 5 years ago, the county established a supplier diversity program that was originally set with a 25% minority of women business enterprises participation. Has this percentage ever been reached, and are you supportive of this program? And where is this program now? It's still being
This is a program I've been very supportive of. And one of the things that I wanted to make sure when we actually created this policy, because we talked about minority participation, and one of the things that I thought was imperative that was included was women participation as well. And sometimes that conversation gets lost when we talk about the diverse population we have and our minority population here in our community. Gary, my understanding of the last update I had on that is that we weren't doing a good enough job, that we hadn't been manning the store enough to make sure that was the case. And that's one of the things we were working on to make sure we correct that issue. But it's something that we haven't done a good enough job on, but we're working to better that, because we do, just take a look around this room. We're a diverse community, and we want to make sure everybody is able to play at the same level.
I guess I'd say ditto. I don't really know how to follow up on that. Brandon is correct. We did look at that a few years ago, and we're not where we should be. And that's probably needs to be something that, once the new commission's in place, definitely takes a look at. You know, we have had contracts with up-and-coming businesses, women-owned business. Tracy's here tonight, or today, with Reach, and she's an example of somebody that has started a business and had contracts with the county. So we're just not quite there. We have to look at not just women, but kind of the makeup of our population also in Osceola County, to make sure everybody's having their fair shake and to come forward and know the bid process inside and out. So, you know, I do know our staff does hold procurement education, so when people come and want to learn the process, they can. Maybe we need to do a better job of getting outreach to the minority businesses to show that they can learn how to bid jobs in the county.
I don't think there's much to add to that.
We're moving to a little bit of a different format now. We're just going to have 2 questions for each of the candidates, one-on-one this time, and then they'll be able to do their closing statements. So this will give us a little chance to ask some of the harder questions and see what the candidates have to say. We're going to start with the candidate for District 1, Mr. Sewell. All right, and who wants to take the first question? Our esteemed editors over there?
I'll do this one.
All right, there we go, Mr. McBride.
As Commissioner Arrington said, a large population of Osceola leaves the county daily for employment. How are we going to create higher paying jobs to keep those residents here?
Well, there's a two-part to that at least. There's a lot of moving parts to that question, but 2 parts that I can identify right off the bat is, first, obviously, you're going to have to give some tax incentives. There's 67 counties in Florida. If the state of Florida is attracting industries to Florida, 67 counties are going to vie to have that business in their location. So in order to be competitive with the other 67 counties, you're going to have to give a good tax incentive for them to come here. The other thing they look at for sure is the school system. And for the employees that they bring from wherever they're coming, they're looking for a great school system for their kids to be in. So I think it's a 2-part thing. We got to be very business friendly. I think if they got to build a building or go through any bureaucracy process, we need to create a liaison and plus tax incentives so that can lead them through the process quickly, be on a quicker time frame as far as what they're trying to get done. And like I said, the school system has to be up to par to somewhere like Seminole County. Seminole County has done a great job in attracting high-paying jobs to their community. And if elected, I want to talk to some ex-county commissioners from up there and see what kind of model they use to attract those industries to Seminole County, because that model worked. And we need to bring that model here in Osceola County.
Thank you very much. And now, Mr. Hanson, let's take one question from you for Mr. Sewell, please.
Yeah, so do you think the county manager is doing the right job right now for the county? And if he does, what do you think it could be improved?
As far as I know, the county manager is doing fine. Like recently they've had to go through some tough times and they've had to make some tough decisions. I can't think of too much that I disagree with any direction that they're heading in. As county commissioner, though, I'll be up there. I'll be there daily and be able to pay closer attention to what's going on. Obviously, the commissioners that are already elected have a lot better insight into what's going on there on a daily basis. But from an outsider looking in, the county manager, I don't see them doing a bad job. He is partly responsible for Colt. Obviously, they didn't do their due diligence, and that they cost the county $1 million+ in building that facility. And someone, the lawyers or someone made a mistake somewhere with Colt, and someone should be held accountable for that. But it might be a lesson learned. And for the next time that Enterprise Florida has an industry that might come to Osceola County, they will do a better job in their due diligence to make sure that we may give tax incentives, but we're not going to spend any money on you. What you spend your money getting here, And then we'll give you tax incentives once you create the jobs and once you build the building or whatever there is that you want to do here in that case.
All right, great, thank you so much. Now what we'd like to do is we're going to have a 1-minute closing from Mr. Sewell.
I'm going to read from the Citizens for Integrity and Leadership. They endorsed me, a local small business owner from Osceola County. Citizens said the choice in this race was clear considering the reports of ethical violations, the embarrassing and public display of Chowdhury's Motel, which was called one of the worst bedbug infestations ever on a celebrity host, that they had ever seen, and her decision to sue Osceola County Sheriff Bob Hansel. They say we believe full-heartedly in Jed Sewell, its community-first approach, said John Arguello, the Citizens Chairman. A selfless servant and a servant's heart is a characteristic we look for in candidates, and Jed, without question, has that. He also has the experience and commitment to provide residents with good governments, which we simply do not believe Ms. Chowdhury has. Instead, she has made extremely questionable decisions, including her lawsuit against the Osceola County Sheriff, costing taxpayers thousands.
Next up, we will hear from Commissioner Arrington. Same format, we'll have one question from each of our news editors, and then a 1-minute closing statement. Thank you very much. All right, let's start with Mr. Hanson this time. Did I give you a minute to sit down there? You're okay?
I'm great, thank you.
Okay, here we go.
What's the biggest difference between you and your opponent?
I'm here, and then none of the three of them are. That would be the clear one. But the other one, the real difference. So, all jokes aside, I'm the only one out of the 4 people running for my race that are actively engaged in our community, and I can say that without indifference because I know I've been here 8 years and I've yet to see any of them working for any cause in our community. They weren't next to me when we fought for a hospital. They weren't next to me when we fought for funding for a health clinic. They weren't next to me when we fought for funding for a Valencia campus. They weren't at the negotiation table when we built Poinciana Parkway. They weren't at the table when we created a deal to build an aquatic center and a community center in Poinciana. They're not here. They're not here today. They're not in my community, and there's no reason for anyone to support them. So that's, to me, the clearest difference between me and my opponents. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. McBride.
Other than what has been discussed, what topics or projects are near and dear to your heart that you would want to tackle as a commissioner if you were reelected?
You know, we've talked on several different items that are just starting, and the reason I say that because the work's not done. We've accomplished a lot, but we're not finished. Poinciana Parkway is the first leg of a beltway. It is not the end-all, be-all, start and beginning. It is a leg. It is a leg that is going to connect us to I-4 and then east to the Turnpike, which is going to change the way we move throughout Central Florida. It will create a relief hub for hurricanes, for folks coming from Miami to look for relief off of the Turnpike. It will also open distribution opportunities all along Southport, connecting St. Cloud to Poinciana. The same thing with the farm. We've just got it started. We still have 400 acres of raw developable land that we're going to be able to leverage over the next 30 years for economic development purposes here in our community. We are in a unique opportunity in Osceola County where things are moving at light speed, and there's a lot to do and there's a lot to still work on. And then the other one is that sustainability policy. We cannot continue to be the bedroom community of Central Florida and expect to have an adequate tax base to provide for the services our citizens demand.
All right, great, thank you very much. Now you have 1 minute to make a closing statement.
I want to thank you all once again for coming out and taking the time to listen to us on a early Tuesday morning. It's always a great opportunity for me as a candidate, for any candidate, to sit up here in front of you all and express their views and have their views challenged by their opponents or not challenged by their opponents. Like I said before, we've accomplished some amazing things in these last 8 years. When I started in office, we had to cut $100 million from our operating budget and lay off 400 people. We made those tough decisions because we knew times were going to be tough, and we had to put ourselves in a position to make positive differences and positive change for the future. And I think we've done that between budgeting, between increasing our infrastructure, and also laying out the framework for development in Osceola County for the next 60 years. No community in the nation has a development plan that extensive and that far out. And so I hope with your help and support, we continue to do great things here in Osceola County. Thank you so much.
All right, so what we're doing at this point is you're getting one question from each of our editors,
Okay.
and then you have 1 minute to do a closing statement.
Okay,
All right, great.
thank you.
So I think this time we start with Mr. McBride.
Give us a proactive vision on how you would handle growth 5 years down the road.
Could you repeat that again for me?
Sure. Give us a proactive vision on how you would handle growth 5 years down the road.
Well, one, we have to concentrate on how the growth is affecting the infrastructure and make sure it goes into particular areas. We have the urban growth boundary now that keeps the services, the service area, and that's why it was created. We need to make sure that that cannot be interrupted with annexation in St. Cloud, especially on my side of the county, to make sure that we are being efficient. And while the state calls for densities in our growth plan, I don't think everything has to be a 50-foot lot. I think that as long as you get the density over all the property, mixed-use districts, I think, are tremendous for what they can do. You can have the condominiums, the townhomes, a single-family home on an acre, or the 50-foot lot that we're seeing. So I think we need to have more of a mix moving forward than just strictly the what people like to call zero lot lines or cookie-cutter housing moving forward.
All right, great. Mr. Hanson.
Yes, well, you probably heard this question before, but do you think the county manager is doing a good job? If so, what, still what he can improve?
Well, I can tell you he's the longest in like 25 years I think we've had. So I think that says something. I can tell you I would not want his job. There's 5 personalities you're answering to. Jed talked a little bit about the county budget, and I can tell you Don Fisher starts in June asking his department heads to go through and find out where efficiencies can be made. Don is not only the county manager and lives in my district, he's also a friend. And, I get to have those conversations that are business with the county, but then also friendship conversations, and fully support him. I think he's doing a great job. I think he's got a great team under him. I think leading us through the time he has taken to work the Florida Advanced Manufacturing and Research Center and having the right people to handle the day-to-day there has just been phenomenal. And he's been a true leader working with the school board to bring that relationship and the 2 cities together.
Would you ask him to look at the supplier diversity program, please?
I will.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, great. And now we have 1 minute for a closing statement.
Oh, perfect. Well, Osceola is facing significant challenges, but also great opportunities. And those opportunities are tackling growth, continuing to create jobs, protecting our water, which I think we have to become more focused on as a board moving forward. I thought that was a good point that Jed Sewell brought up. Supporting public safety, which we've done. We have to continue to make sure we're going down that line to, that's our #1 job as elected officials. Enhancing education, working in our partnership, and continue to make sure that we're working with our budget to enhance what they're doing. Improving transportation, but most of all, I'm fending off new taxes, because I think that's what brings our tax base from the commercial and industrial end. And I believe I am the right gentleman to handle that moving forward for the next 4 years, and I'd appreciate anybody in this room that lives in District 5 support. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you to everybody, and thank you to our candidates, and have a great day.